Okay, so welcome to Grounded, everybody, with John Tester and Maritza Giorgio. Listen, you are part of our test today because we are trying out this new platform where we can kind of stream in multiple places, which means I think we are also live on YouTube right now. I hope we are. We're trying this out. Like, we'll pull back the curtain here. What you see is what you get. It's us two, and then we have some help from some of my friends in TV and audio. So we're going to do this live with you and test out this new video platform. What do you think, Senator?
I think for those that know me, they know I had nothing to do with this because I don't have the capability, okay? Those that don't know me, I had nothing to do with this because I don't have the capability, okay?
Yeah. Well, we're gonna see how it goes, and I'm hopeful I can still see comments and all of that. But we wanted to come to you on this Veterans Day and say, first of all, thank you so much to our veterans, everyone who's served this country, and also to your families as well. We have a special Veterans Day episode for you coming out in just a little bit. As you know, veterans issues are deeply important to former Senator John Tester.
Well, I mean, you said it pretty well. I mean, not only thank the veterans, but thank their families for their sacrifice to this country. And, I talk to a lot of veterans where people come up to them and say, thank you for your sacrifice. And they don't really get the feeling that people really do feel that way. They're saying it just out of courtesy. I don't know if that's right or not. All I can tell you is that we would not have the country we have today without the sacrifices that our military have made for since the beginning of this country. And I think it's said many times, and I think, in fact, our guest has said on the podcast for today. He said, every day needs to be Veterans Day so that we can thank the folks who have fought and died and sacrificed for this country and make sure we're taking care of them and make sure we have a VA that takes care of them because I think that's important. And we dive into all that. But in the end, November 11th is an important day in this country because it is a day for us to step back and think about the folks who have served, uh, not only in active military, but also our guards and reservists. And what they have done for this country, and why it's so important that they be used in the proper way moving forward if we're going to maintain our democracy.
Yeah, we get into all of that, and it's a great conversation. We even get into some political stuff as far as, independent candidates running for office, and, we it's a great conversation, and you're right, he did say every day is Veterans Day because I wrote it down as an idea for the title of this podcast.
There you go. Well, good.
There
Yeah.
you go. So let's get into some headlines, if you don't mind, to start us off here. I do want to mention that there are veteran led protests happening across the country today. It's called Vets Say No, basically protests against some of the actions and policies by this current administration. And the tagline is no ICE, no cuts, no occupation.
Well, that's what I mean when I talk about the military being used in the right way. Uh, not against our people, but to protect our people. And I think it's really important. And I think if you take a look at countries where democracy's gone awry and dictatorships have risen, they've used the military uh, to put that agenda out there. And we don't want that to happen in this country. Look, we've had the greatest country in the world for 250 years. So for those folks out there that want to make America great again, it already happened. And quite honestly, as we see things like SNAP benefits being challenged and taken away, and we see insurance rates going through the roof, that doesn't make us the greatest country in the world. That diminishes us as a nation. Uh, Needless to say, a lot of the other things that I think make us a great nation is the strength of our military and the strength of our economy. And uh, I worry about our military right now. I worry about they're focused on the wrong things. I worry they're focused domestically instead of focused on, China and Russia and North Korea and Iran, our enemies in this world, because that's where the focus needs to be. But at any rate, I kind of meandered off that, but go ahead.
That's okay. That's okay. You're allowed to do that. The headline that just continues to get so much play right now is what happened a couple nights ago, and then formally last night. The Senate formally voted to end the shutdown last night. Now it goes to the House. We're waiting to kind of hear what that looks like, and when they will vote. It could be as soon as Wednesday. Tomorrow is what I'm reading. Meanwhile, I don't have to tell you, there's a lot of infighting, anger within the Democratic Party. We had a few comments yesterday after some of your comments saying, in the end, it's the right thing to do to feed these families who are relying on SNAP benefits, but mostly respectful. Your former colleague, Sheldon Whitehouse, posted a video, though, that I think is a smart take. And I'm going to try to use our new platform here to play it and listen and get your reaction on the other side.
A lot of people are feeling some pretty strong feelings today, feelings of frustration, even betrayal. I have somewhat the advantage of, from being in the Senate, being a couple of days ahead of everybody, seeing that this was going to happen. So I've had a little bit more time to process it than people who discovered it yesterday. And while I think everybody is entitled to their feelings on this, and I don't want to derogate those in any way, we need to remember the battle that we're in. And every ounce of energy that we put into fighting with each other, fighting with other Democrats, is energy that is lost to the fight to defend our country from Trump and MAGA. Two things that are coming up that are really important. One is that in December, there will be a vote on extending the Affordable Care Credits that we fought for. That gives us from now until then weeks to hammer the Republicans so hard that we actually get a good Affordable Care Credits bill. Not because we trust them, not because they want to get it done, but because in those weeks we have continued to amp up the pressure on them to where they have no choice. If instead of doing that in those weeks we're fighting with each other, we've missed an opportunity for a big win for people we care about who receive Affordable Care Credits.
So then he goes on to say, there's a second part of this, which is when they're going to negotiate the actual appropriations bill, because of course this is just a stopgap measure for 3 months, that they can go in and put, try to put more protections and padding around programs and departments where there have been cuts. So what do you think?
Well, first of all, I think Sheldon Whitehouse is spot on. Sheldon and I were in the same class, got elected in 2006. He's still there. I'm not, but Sheldon is a great guy. And I think a true statesman, very thoughtful. And I think he's right. Um, Look, I have a tremendous fear moving forward, and I don't think extending the shutdown would have eliminated this problem. But I have a fear that the Republicans' main goal here is to try to get rid of Obamacare. Well, if you don't put the subsidies in and rates go through the top, they go through the roof. They can say, "Well, see, it doesn't work." Well, that's bullshit because it has worked, and it's worked for over 10 years now, and it really uh, needs to have those subsidies so people can afford to get health care. Now, let me tell you something. If they do that, if they say, "Well, we're just not going to deal with it," they don't have a plan, because if they'd had a plan, it would have been talked about years ago. They don't have a plan to privatize healthcare totally, and it's pretty well privatized now, by the way. Um, and so what you're gonna have with that big, beautiful bill that really screwed a lot of people on Medicaid, um, and then you have a situation where people can't afford insurance, and by the way, it's coming. We've seen it happen over the last week, and it's gonna continue to happen. You're gonna have hospitals closed in wholesale fashion. The chair care that will be demanded by this is not gonna be sustainable, and they will have to close because they will be broke. And that's the problem when you have somebody that's sitting in the White House that's a multimillionaire that's declared bankruptcy 6 times and continues to talk about stuff like he knows what he's talking about when he's never lived in the real world. So I hope that the Senate does what they need to do. And if you got a better plan out there, Lindsey Graham or whoever you might be, let's see it. Let's see it. Let's see if it's affordable. Because if we see it and it's affordable, I'll bet you have great bipartisan support for it. but it has to be implemented. It has to be able to be implemented very quickly because people are hurting out there because of the inflation that's been brought on over the last 10 months, which, by the way, I saw Scott Bassett on TV this morning, I believe. It was a clip that says, "Oh, no, everything is just fine." Well, you know what? He's right. The price of unleaded gasoline is down. It is down, but everything else is up, including those eggs that President Trump talked about during the campaign. So, I mean, look, if the Republicans do their job, if Democrats work hard, which they will, and they come up with a program to make sure the SNAP benefits are there and that health insurance is at least somewhat affordable, then what's transpired over the last 40 days will be good. Um, if in fact the goal of this administration is to implement Project 2025, which appears has been a uh, very dominant goal because they're implementing the chapter and verse.
Mhm.
I would say take a look at that proposal because it impacts everybody in this country that's not an oligarch very negatively.
Well, we should mention that the president he's been on True Social a lot, of course, there's not a big surprise there, but he put up a social media post that basically attacked air traffic controllers who didn't show up for work during the shutdown, and he said, I think I have a screenshot here, I can throw it up. He said that, he's not happy with them, they didn't step up to help the US against what he called the fake Democrat attack that was only meant to hurt our country, and then he floated a $10,000 bonus for people who did show up, but basically said he doesn't know where that money will come from. And then, we had former Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg basically say, "Hey, the president wouldn't last 5 minutes as an air traffic controller after everything they've been through and the way this administration has treated them. He has no business, I'll say it, shitting on them now."
Wow, wash your mouth out with soap.
Woo!
Exactly. Well, I mean, look, I mean, we expect people to work and not get paid. Come on, come on. I mean, that's crazy. Feelings. That's crazy stuff. And so consequently, um, as I said from the beginning, this shutdown President Trump liked. Remember the bit longest shutdown before this one was in his first term. He liked that one too. And in the end, he could have shut the shutdown down in a heartbeat if he'd have just uh, wanted to do the right thing. But instead, politics, which has always been a problem in Washington, D.C., tends to float to the top. And we're not doing what we need to do to take care of people that need our help. And we're not doing what we need to push the economy forward in a way that will work to help pay down that debt, by the way. That's where the $10,000 would come from, just adding to the debt. That's where you'd find the money. And just like he found the 20 billion for Argentina to be able to sell soybeans to China and undercut our ag markets. I mean, all this stuff doesn't make any sense. And there's my phone again. Wow.
Y
Uh,
Your
uh,
landline, do you wanna take care of it?
this is Gene Shaheen.
What?
Well, it is. Yeah.
No way.
Yeah, it is.
You can't you can't answer your phone live on a stream, right?
Well, I can.
Take it and let her know, we'll call her
Hey, Gene, how are you? So I'm doing a podcast right now. Do you want to be on it live via the phone? Because I'll put you on speaker. Yeah, okay, I'm going to put you on speaker. Right?
No way.
Okay, this is Jean Shaheen, everybody. She's a great senator from New Hampshire, who, by the way, and for those people who don't like Jean Shaheen because she was part of the leadership that helped negotiate this, I think Jean Shaheen did the right thing. And Jean Shaheen was somebody who stepped up and said, "Hey, this shutdown isn't working for folks. People aren't getting fed. People can't travel. Insurance rates are still going up. So let's try to figure out a different way to fix this stuff." And I just want to say, Gene, I appreciate your leadership.
Well, thanks, John, and thanks for your call. I understand people are frustrated because, unfortunately, this president doesn't really care much about the people of this country. And I think we had 41 days and we made a strong point that we need to address the cost of health insurance for Americans. We are going to continue to fight to do that, and we are going to have a vote that the majority is going to give to the Democrats on a bill that we're going to write. So hopefully they will come to the table and help us get that done so that we can get a bill that will pass. If not, we're going to keep fighting about it until the election next year, and the people of this country are going to hold them accountable. But as you say, we can't let people continue to not get enough to eat and federal employees to have to borrow gas money in order to get to work for a job that they're not getting paid for. We've got an air traffic control system that's stressed and threat of safety. So we can't leave government shut down. We need to let it open up, and we need to continue to fight another day.
100% right. And I was on MSNBC this morning, and one of the things I said was, this is the first time Democrats haven't overplayed their hand. They did the right thing. They set politics aside and did the right thing. And I think long term, and this is my true beef, for the people who are in the middle, which I still believe the vast majority of people are in the middle, are going to see this for what it is, because all these issues now are in the Republicans' lap because they have a majority in the House, the Senate, and they control the executive branch. And so when it comes to SNAP, if they don't do it, they can't blame it on the Democrats because the government shut down. When it comes to health insurance premiums, they can't blame it on the Democrats because the government shut down. It's on their lap. And I will tell you this, and you know this, Gene, if they don't want to put these subsidies in, I can't wait to see what healthcare bill they're going to put forward, because I haven't seen one yet that works.
Well, absolutely. We haven't really seen a health care bill. We know when they tried to get rid of the Affordable Care Act, they had no alternative.
That's right.
So they need to help us make sure that people can afford their health insurance, and we need to do something about the cost of our health care system.
Yep. Those costs and all sorts of other things like combine parts that I'm worried about. Okay.
Absolutely. And the tariffs aren't helping anybody. They're making everybody pay more.
Yeah.
So biggest see that on the farm.
Biggest tax increase on the American people. Man, I'll tell you what, if you'd have been president done this, Gene, they'd really be mad at you, you know?
Hey, Senator, I'm wondering if we can ask Senator Shaheen a question, because we have a lot of people commenting and like we talked about already, a lot of people within the Democratic base really unhappy with this.
Yeah.
And so I'm just wondering, how to move on from that, because there are people who are upset.
I'm going to let Gene say, but I just want to say one thing. People need to focus on the people that caused this problem. This is President Trump's shutdown. He could have ended this. He could have ended this before it started, but he thought it was a political win for him. And if you think this was a political win for anybody, it wasn't. And so you can complain about the Democrats, but the truth is the Republicans control the House, they control the Senate, and they control the executive branch. They control the presidency. And Gene knows this. The Republicans in the Senate haven't done jack shit to put controls on this president, and that's worrisome. But in the end, you can complain about the Democrats, but they're in the minority in every house, and they don't control the presidency. What would you have to say, Gene?
Well, that was going to be my response. Look, as you pointed out, we are in this mess because Donald Trump refused to address cost of health insurance because the Republicans refused to address it. And I understand that there are a lot of Democrats who think that the only way to stand up to Donald Trump was to keep the government shut down. We've made the point that this is about the cost of health insurance and health care and how important that is, and we're going to keep fighting. And we've got a date in December when we're going to be able to make another issue, and either they come to the table or we hold them accountable next year. But the way we get this done is by working together, not by having an internal firing squad that attacks Democrats. And unfortunately, a lot of those attacks are coming from people who have their own agendas, who want to run for president, or who have other agendas that they're more concerned about than how we work together to get this done.
Yep, exactly right. Or raise money, because it's easy to raise money if you're out there throwing stones. So, Hey, Gene, thanks for being on. Do you have another question, Marisa? No, she doesn't.
Well, I'm sure I do, but
I
I feel bad that we have ambushed her on the phone here when she was just
did,
calling to talk
but
to
I,
you.
I picked up the receiver and I said, Gene, do you mind? And of course, being the stand-up lady that she is, she said, no, we'll do it. So, Gene, thank you very much, and thank you very much for your leadership. I for one, really appreciate it.
Thank you, John. We missed you in the Senate.
And I'll take care. Be well. All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.
Well, that was a surprise.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting.
That is a that maybe we're gonna have to have, like, some call-in surprise guests here and there. That would be an interesting aspect to the
I,
show.
I think it works better if we ambush them, though. It works much better if there's an ambush
Maybe
involved.
you should have had a career in journalism. I do need to I do need to mention, like, there is real concern. There's real concern that this is, you know, on the Democratic side, that the 40 days was for nothing,
It
and
wasn't, though. It wasn't. They proved the point. They proved that they were fighting for, making healthcare premiums at least stable.
but the
And
other concern is how to hold Republicans accountable when
you
this
know,
does come up for a vote.
that'll be done by the American people when they vote. If these guys vote wrong, they need to be held accountable. I gave a little speech at a farm group this Saturday, and one of their big concerns was since Republicans don't do town hall meetings anymore, how do we get our input out? Because when we send off an email, a canned response comes back, and you got to think about creative ways to do that. I'm not going to tell you what I told that group, but it was a pretty non-creative, creative way. But you need to continue to give these folks your opinion because I'm going to tell you, if they didn't hear what the people were saying last Tuesday, a week ago today, then they are tone deaf. They don't understand. Because I'm here to tell you, as you look at that map, every seat that could have been won by a Democrat was. The only ones that lost were the ones that looked kind of crazy. Okay. Other than that, they won every seat. I don't care if it was a red state, a blue state. I don't care if it was for the courts, for the legislature, for Congress, for governorships, mayors, everybody. I mean, they absolutely mopped the floor. Now, if Republicans are so tone deaf that they didn't understand that the reason those people voted Democrat wasn't necessarily that the Democrats have all the good idea, it was that they despised what was going on at the federal level right now. And they despised the fact that the United States Senate, the Republicans in the United States Senate, were doing nothing to stop it. And you're going to see a repeat of that in a year from now. I was concerned the Democrats were going to overplay their hand on this. They haven't, and I think it's smart. I think doing right by the people will appreciate, and I think that's what was done in the last 2 days.
I'll just say to
I know
speak for other
you disagree, but go ahead.
I don't it's not that I disagree, but there are people who say that's exactly why they should have held out because public opinion was in the favor of the Democrats on this one. We saw it last Tuesday, and that's
Except
what a lot.
except for one reason, I don't think Trump gives a damn about the public opinion. I don't. I do think there's some senators that care about the public opinion
Mm.
if smart enough to read it right. No, I mean the fact that Trump appealed the SNAP funding right after all this shows you that he don't give a shit. And Gene said it. He don't care. People starving. That's no skin off his ass. He's got a plate full of food in front of him. So
And if you are planning on flying, I am here to give you some bad news, because airlines are saying basically, "Hey, uh, even once the shutdown ends, once the House gets back and votes, our cancellations are not gonna disappear overnight." So they're warning it's gonna take some time for travel schedules to return to some kind of normalcy. We saw as of this morning, 1,100 flights canceled already for Tuesday. Airlines are expected to cancel 6% of their flights. So, still some headaches out there, folks. So
it,
just
it, it's not going to be perfect. It's going to be better than it was, but it's still going to be a pain in the ass.
okay. This is new reporting out today from CNN, an exclusive that says the UK is no longer sharing intelligence with the US specifically about boats suspected to be carrying drugs in the Caribbean, as the UK doesn't want to be seen as complicit in these strikes that many are calling illegal. So what is your thoughts as this continues to ramp up? I mean, we have all of these flashy headlines that come up and you kind of prioritize where they sit in your head and other headlines move down, but this is still very much an ongoing thing that's happening that a lot of people in the international community are saying, what is happening there?
Well, what's happening is Congress isn't doing their job. It's, they need to pass the military use of force bill. It was up last week, I believe, and was voted down. The president does not have the right to just go out and arbitrarily strike folks without congressional approval, and that's what's going on right now. And so, if Congress did their job, um, and that is, do the vote, give them the military use of force, then he'd be fine. But what he's doing right now is questionable at best. I think the UK's interpretation of that is probably what the entire international community is thinking right now.
And there was some breaking news that came down that a U.S. aircraft carrier is nearing Latin America, kind of seen as another escalation. So we will continue to watch that. And the last headline I have for you is in Utah. Late Monday, a judge said no to a new congressional map there that was drawn by GOP lawmakers would have favored Republicans in Utah. Instead, a judge approved a map that has a Democratic leaning district. So, as we continue to see this fight over uh, congressional redrawing of maps, there's a judge in Utah that did not let the GOP drawn map go through. We'll see what happens next.
So, my opinion is I don't think we should have maps that bend either way. I think what Congress should do, another job that maybe could start in the US Senate, since we have AI and since it can gather incredible amounts of information at the click of a button, figure out, utilizing AI, how to set up these congressional districts without them being gerrymandered so that everybody gets equal representation. And that's, I mean, when you have a deep red district or a deep blue district, that's not the way it should work. And go with some are going to be anyway because that's just the way it is. But figure out a way to do it. We're using the shortest lines or whatever, however it is, so that we have more districts that are, purple. I guess would be the word. Okay,
Representative of the people.
representative of the people, so that when people go back and make votes, they have to think about both sides of the issue, not just one or not just the hard right. And so that, by the way, when people vote in the House, they're not worried about a primary, they're worried about the general, which is what they should be worried about. And when in most of these districts, they're only worried about the primary, whether that's on the right or the left.
So let's pivot right now into our conversation. We want to welcome to Grounded Paul Rieckhoff. He's the president of Righteous Media, and he's the founder of this group called Independent Veterans of America. And he also founded Iraq and Afghanistan Veterans of America, served in Iraq. Thank you so much, Paul, not only for your service, but for being with us here today.
My pleasure. Great to be here. I feel like I've been grounded on and off my whole life, so it's the perfect place for me. And it's great to meet you, Maritza, and anything for Senator Tesser. I mean it. When y'all reached out, I think he's one of the finest leaders I've seen. He's a man of integrity. We miss him. And he also, I have something to say. You owe me something, sir. You
What
owe
is
me. You owe me a basketball game. For many years, we said that
Oh.
you and your staff were going to play me and my staff in basketball. And I know you've been getting fit and you're on the farm getting stronger, but I still want to have us do battle in the post at some point on a basketball court.
So I want to tell you something, Paul. Before I get to talking about Paul Rieckhoff. So right after the election, my chief of staff, who's as bald as you are, decided to play some basketball with me and a bunch of other guys. And he came driving into the lane. He's half my age. He came driving into the lane, and I decided to take a charge, and I landed flat on my ass. I mean, no holes barred, just boom. And then I flipped back and hit my back on the floor. And I'm gonna tell you something. You know what I realized? I realized that I was in my late 60s and I can't be doing this kid shit anymore. So, but that's a year ago. I've almost forgot about the pain that was associated with that for the next 2 weeks, and I couldn't walk. And so you're on, big boy.
And you've lost some weight. I think you're in better shape. So maybe you're
I'm still ain't in good enough shape, but I'm good enough shape to take Rieckhoff on. I'll tell you
Like
that.
it. We play old man basketball every Friday morning in my neighborhood downtown New York City. You're welcome to join us. And I hear your pain. I am 50 now, and I actually have a cracked bone in my elbow from taking my son to a father-son Poconos Bobby Hurley basketball camp. And I tried to play with all these 25 and 30-year-olds and slipped on a wet floor and landed on my elbow. And I'm like, oh yeah, I definitely just broke my elbow. I definitely just broke my elbow. But I'm still playing, and my jump shot might actually be better now. So I'm ready, sir. Anytime, anytime.
So we'll make a date of that. But I want to talk about since this we're taping this the day before Veterans Day. So tomorrow is Veterans Day, and we're going to be releasing this on Veterans Day. And I want to talk about veterans with one of the guys that I think has been a leader on veterans issues, certainly during my time in the United States Senate, and that's Paul Rieckhoff. Paul is he's been there, he's done that. And I will tell you, we are good friends. And the reason we're good friends is because Paul isn't a bullshit kind of guy. If he sees something he likes, he tell you about it. If he sees something you don't like, he tells you about it. And he tells you why in both instances, by the way. So you always know where you stand with Paul Rieckhoff. And so when I needed to visit with somebody to get my VA veterans fix. This is the guy, and so I just kind of want to. And Marisa, you're going to have to jump in because this is kind of what I did for 18 years. So I'm
No,
going
I want you. That's why I want you to kinda lead us
to.
off, Senator.
So what first want to talk to you about, and you never mince words, and I don't want you to mince words now, but where is the VA? Is it in better shape since I left? Is it in worse shape since I left? I'm talking about the last year. Has it gotten better? Has it gotten worse? Are there some things are doing better, some things are doing worse? What's your analysis as a veteran, a combat veteran, in the VA?
First off, I got to say straight up, because I am no bullshit. We miss you. We miss you in the Senate. We miss you in the veterans community working on these issues. We miss you even in Washington, which I know is like a crazy land. But you have always been, a force of integrity and of honesty. And you're my favorite senator I've ever met. I mean, and I say that to people. You are, because you're no bullshit. You're a real person, and you were always there for us. I still remember when I first came into your office, and we were in I think an underground office, and I said, look, we want to put this bill together on suicide to honor Clay Hunt, who was a friend of mine, who was a Marine that we lost, who was a part of groups that had gone to Capitol Hill. I think you probably met him before he was lost to suicide. And I said, we want to put this bill together. And you said right away, I'm in. And, fast forward, bill signing ceremony, Clay's family was there with President Obama, and a rare time where we had Republicans and Democrats on the same stage. I think I was standing between John McCain and Nancy Pelosi, right? And that was what we all got done together. But we miss you because right now the VA is under attack. And I think that's really the right way to put it, because I think that much of government is under attack. I'm a political independent. That's part of why I think you and I have gotten along well. And when you came on my show, I said, boy, I hope you go back to Montana and run as an independent, because the Democratic brand is so toxic and the Democrats frustrate me so much and so many other people. But I think there's a need for independence, and that need is no more urgent than around the Department of Veterans Affairs, because I think most folks can see that Trump is waging war, and I think a cultural war, on our government institutions. And I think the thing you have to understand is there's been a lightning and thunder attack on the Pentagon and the VA. And they started with the Pentagon, because if you want to take over government, if you want to drive forward what I think is a extreme agenda, if you want to rip it all down and create something different, you start with the biggest piece on the chessboard. And the biggest piece on the chessboard, the most influential, the biggest budget, the culturally strongest place, the place with the guns, is the Pentagon. And they started with their most radical, their most reliable nominee, Pete Hegseth. He was kind of like the Hail Mary. And once you hit a Hail Mary, you can open up the defense. And I think that's what we saw with them putting up Hegseth first, because for a long time we thought he was going to get nominated as VA secretary. And he had been working in the veterans community. He had kind of been built in a right-wing lab with the Koch brothers and others, and then grew to Fox, and he became this thing. But we said, you know what, this guy's never going to make it through vetting. because we all knew that there were issues. We figured, maybe he'll be able to make it through VA, but Pentagon, holy shit, this is like the moonshot. And once they landed that, it blew open the doors for other, I think, unqualified and radical nominees like Tulsi Gabbard, like RFK Jr., and like Doug Collins at the VA, because once you get through Tulsi and Hegseth and RFK Jr., VA is always kind of a lower priority issue. And he is no less radical, ideologically driven, or extreme politically than Hegseth is. He just has a Southern accent and a different delivery. And he opposes women's rights. He's opposed gay rights. He didn't recognize the election. I mean, this is a guy that is not anywhere near the middle, but he comes packaged as a religious guy. He's a preacher. A Baptist minister, I think, and he has a military experience, but he's been really, really effective in initiating attacks that are starting to dismantle the very core of the VA. Now, the real brilliance of what they've done here, sir, and then I'll be quiet for a second, is a lot of folks said, Trump's going to cut all the budgets, and I said he's not going to cut VA. Because what he's going to do is increase VA, talk about how it's historic and he loves veterans, but where that money goes is going to be different. So what we've got now is the full manifestation of what I've called the Veterans Industrial Complex. Everybody knows about the military industrial complex at the Pentagon and how much stuff has been privatized to billionaires and tech companies and lots of folks that are just having a feeding frenzy. Well, now that door is opened at the VA too, and it's on. I mean, the privatization of the VA that you and I and many others have fought for so long is now fully developing. So on everything from suicide prevention to even benefits, I mean, it's all going out to the private sector. And I think we're going to see over the next couple of years that Trump's friends and a lot of crooked folks in this country are going to do really well at the expense of veterans. There's always been a way to do a hybrid, private and public attack and the way you approach veterans, but I don't think veterans are better served. And most importantly, morale sucks because they've been firing so many people, they've been threatening to fire people, and they don't do it in a respectful and honorable way. So Doug Collins will do this thing where he says, leave my veterans alone. Well, the truth is, most folks at VA are scared of him and the guillotine that is Doge coming through and cutting them with a lack of respect, a lack of foresight, and a lack of strategy. So the thing to remember is Doug Collins, in my view, works for Trump and his extreme political agenda, and veterans is secondary.
I got you. So let me ask you, they passed a big, beautiful, and I'll throw in bullshit for another B bill here a few months ago. And a lot of veterans live in rural America. A lot of veterans live in rural America. And that bill is going to make so there's a lot more charity care. And if there's a lot more charity care, these hospitals that are hanging on their fingernails, many of them in rural America, will close. So how the hell do you privatize and get service over the short and long term if these small facilities close? Say you're for privatization. Say that's something that you really think is important. And there's some people that do that. Although I'll tell you, most veterans I talk to like the care they got from the VA. Okay. But let's say that you're in that boat. How do you meet the needs of the veterans out there if the hospitals are closed? You can't, right?
So yeah, that's right. I mean, that's always been the ideological dream, is that you can privatize the VA and the market will just serve it. That works great potentially if you live in New Orleans or if you live in New York City. But if you're in rural Montana, what private sector area is ready to give a female Marine prosthetic care on her leg? I mean, that just doesn't exist, like especially specialized care. And I use that as an example, right? Women have different, physical makeups than men. They need different kinds of prosthetic. They need expertise. Military sexual trauma. Let's use that as an example. Maybe you have an expert in a rural town, but if not, you're driving hundreds of miles. And I think that's what you're seeing a lot of folks already do in the places where this privatization, it is an ideological dream. Right. In the same way, some folks want to privatize all schools or privatize anything else. And they recognized many years ago that you well know, Senator, that the VA has a beaten down brand. and that people care deeply about veterans. And that might be the place to try to make this case, to try to make this argument, to let the veterans be the guinea pigs. But I think there's also another element that is totally underreported that sits over all of this. They are laying off tons of federal workers. Roughly 40% of federal workers are veterans. And they live in rural areas, they live in urban areas. And every time Elon Musk fired somebody, they didn't give them a job at Tesla. And they didn't even give them a job somewhere else in the federal government. So you and I, sir, we worked for decades to create jobs programs and lower the veteran unemployment rate. We create all these transitional packages and all these companies that stood up. And then they came in and fired them all. And they didn't give them any kind of transition package. They didn't give them a job working in a different part of government. They said, you know what? We don't need you. You're dispensable. And these are people that have been continuing their government service by serving in the TSA and Homeland Security and forestry and everywhere else. So I think this is actually the most nefarious part of what they've done. But I do think there's a silver lining, and I hope you'll hear me out on this. I think that the folks that are most effectively challenging Trump's radicalism, especially for the long term, are not going to come from the far left. The solution to Trump is not Mamdani, right? It's something in the middle. And what's in the middle is a group I'm calling the patriotic purged. They are FBI, they are CIA, they are military, they are federal workers, they are people who put country over party. They're not partisan. They're not Democrats or Republicans, most of them. And if they are, they keep it to themselves. And tens of thousands, potentially hundreds of thousands now with the shutdown, have been thrown out in the streets. And they're pissed off. They know it's wrong. They know they have value. And they're starting to organize. And I do think there's some unique potential for folks like you, but even more so, maybe for someone like Spanberger in Virginia, who's been a CIA operative, someone like Mikey Sherrill, who is a moderate Democrat, but a chopper pilot. If they can figure out, and I'm not counting on Democrats, mind you, if somebody can figure out how to unite the patriotic purge, I think this is the most important group of people to push back against Trump. It's not just no Kings rallies and Code Pink. It's got to be the middle, the guts. And I think a lot of that guts is in rural America. And then those are the folks that will save us from what I think is a very dangerous time, especially on Veterans Day. They're going to be out at the Veterans Day parade. They're celebrating Marine Corps birthday today. And they are the heroes that we need in this moment.
I think they were at the No Kings rallies, though. I do. I think they were there.
I don't think most of them were. I do think, candidly, respectfully, I think many were, but I do think that the No Kings rallies still come off as left of center. And especially because of the leaders. Like, there weren't a lot of moderate, like, I would love it if General Milley was there, right? If CQ Brown was there, right? But they need leaders that are not politicians. And I still think that exists somewhere else and hasn't been captured, respectfully.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great point. Go ahead, Senator.
No, I mean, look, and I would just say that the more the merrier. The more people that understand what's going on in this country, whether it's with our military, with our veterans, with our working families, private sector, education, whatever it might be, the better off we are. So I applaud those folks that are becoming active, because the truth is democracy works better when more people are involved in the process and paying attention to what's going on. And in that vein, I'm here to tell you, if you're listening to this program, I'm not in the U.S. Senate anymore. So quit goddamn on me. I voted wrong. Okay. So just want to put that out there.
Yeah, we should mention, we talked about this in the episode Monday, but people still are calling John Tester to say, how could you, what did they got mad at you for voting?
Got mad at me for voting, and I didn't vote. And the problem is, they said they're going to take me out in the next election, and they forgot to figure out that I got taken out in the last election. So, Christ, we wonder why Donald Trump's president. People got to pay attention. But at any rate,
hey, can I hold on that for a second, though, because there is something that, and I don't know how much you've talked about this. They came for you because you stood up for veterans. And I think people need to know that and understand that, right? Ronnie Jackson was absolutely unqualified. You and I had meetings around this time, and we had meetings the same around Eric Shinseki when he was failing, right? We bipartisan conversations for decades around these issues. And I remember sitting in the White House telling Rahm Emanuel and other people that Shinseki was going down. They needed to stop defending him because there were problems. Now, that was then. But Ronnie Jackson should have been disqualified. And you held the line on that, and they remembered it, and they were vengeful, and they said they were going to come back after you. And I want to just to let people know that veterans have had no stronger advocate than John Tester. And those attacks were baseless. They were mean. They were political, but they also hurt veterans because now we got this dipshit Ronnie Jackson in Congress, and you're on the farm getting harassed by people who don't know you're not even in the Senate anymore.
And
That's the net.
Their harassment isn't so bad. I just find it ironic that people don't pay attention. But that aside, let me get back on veterans for a second. One of the things that we did a lot of work on, uh, and we did a lot of work on a lot of stuff, but some of it was cancer registries, some of it was VA research, a good portion of it was suicide prevention. Are those efforts still moving? Are they being defunded? What's going on, or do you know?
I think that it is a mixed bag. Everything's been reviewed. There have been freezes. The shutdown hit people like the crisis support line, right? I mean, the thing that I think is most important is it's a total environment of disruption and indecision. And a lot of good people are leaving VA because they don't want to get involved in this or because they don't have job security. Right? I mean, that's a very basic thing is you don't know if you're getting fired. So I talked to so many folks that came up in IVA and are in my network who just didn't know if they were getting fired. And they've been living that way for, a year now. And they're like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to go to the private sector. I'm going to go somewhere else. I'm a talented person. So I think the brain drain at the VA is very, very important, and for example, when you had a Max Cleland in there, or if you had put a Tammy Duckworth in there, someone that was kind of an iconic person for our community, people said, yeah, I want to go run to DC and work for that person. No one's like, yeah, I want to go run down there and work for Doug Collins. I mean, like that's not happening. And I do think that something else is happening. Everybody in America, but especially veterans around Veterans Day, are withdrawing from society more and more. They're not as involved in sports. They're not as involved in churches. They're not as involved in politics. And we have a real crisis for men, especially in this country. I talk a lot about young men, but it's a maelstrom and they are disconnected. And all that work we did around suicide prevention was kind of a warm up for now because you put COVID on top of that, you put the shutdown on top of that, and you put the general fear that people have of just engaging. They'd rather just lean back and watch a football game or just zone out and do something else. And I think that the danger of isolation right now that Trump is compounding is really, really important on this Veterans Day. Suicide is still taking more of our brothers and sisters than anything else every day. And they are isolated. And the key to them, to getting them saved, is not just VA funding, and all that is important because you're right, quality of care is very high. Access to care is often a problem. The thing they need is hope and connection. And so on this Veterans Day, I say, VA is often a source of hope and connection, and anything stopping them from going there is bad. And in the meantime, hope and connection can be volunteering in communities, helping your neighbors, being involved in coaching Little League, all that kind of stuff. And we need a national conversation about how to bring people back in because that's how we're going to save lives and get people hired and kind of rebuild the fabric that exists there that too often these guys are kind of shredding apart.
We got a lot of people that view this program, and you know what they're saying right now? Why isn't this guy in Congress? I'm talking about
You?
You. Well, they're asking that too.
But they're asking, why? I don't know what your IQ is, but it's got to be like 450 or something. You know, I mean, Jesus, man. I mean, I called this guy less than 12 hours ago about this interview, and it's like you prepared for the last 3 months for it. I'm
Well,
gonna
no,
go.
he's been preparing his whole life for it because he knows this, he lives this, and he breathes this.
Well, I'll tell you what I told you on the phone the other night, sir, is that last night, it was that I've been working in the veterans movement for 20 years. And I've called a lot of my veteran friends. We fought on suicide. We fought on don't ask, don't tell. We fought on getting better care for women. We fought on body armor, right? We fought on all, and I said, all that stuff was a warm up for this. Because right now we are fighting for the soul of our democracy. And it is on the line here and in places like Ukraine. And all of us have to answer that call. And to answer your question, why am I not in Congress? In large part because I'm an independent. I live in Lower Manhattan in New York City, not far from where I served on 9/11. I was in the New York Guard. You can't win as an independent in New York, just like maybe you can't win as a Democrat or Republican other places. And that's why I've started an initiative called Independent Veterans of America. We need to be able to have a viable pathway and infrastructure for vets who I think most of which are in the middle. I think 50% of them are independent and unaffiliated. 60% of young people are independent and unaffiliated. They want to run, but they don't want the parties. and they're not Democrats and Republicans, and there's no pathway for them. So not just for me, but for thousands of these patriotic purges, I'm working on building that pathway so folks can run, they can serve, and they don't have to kiss the ring of Donald Trump or Chuck Schumer. Like
What does
that,
that
that's
look
where
like?
most of America is.
What does that pathway look like? Like, do you think that we're going to see I mean, it's no secret right now, you open up a social media feed and there are a lot of angry people for lots of reasons, and a lot of angry Democrats over this vote last night, or Sunday night, I should say, um, about giving in and reopening the government, and a lot of people angry about that. There are other Democrats who say that was the right move, but what does the path look like? Do you think that we're going to see a record amount of viable independent candidates in 2026?
Yes, I think the future of American politics is independent. Most of America has put a middle finger up to both parties. And both of them have toxic brands. 10,000 people leave the Democratic and Republican Party every day. New people, young people are choosing none of the above. And it's many moderates, but it's not just moderates. It is an attitude more than it is a political affiliation. It's people who say, I am unsatisfied with the entire status quo and I want different. And some of them do want to blow up the system, or they feel like the system's rigged, and they're right. And so to answer your question, I think it's a two-pronged strategy. Number one, we need leaders. We need leaders who are trusted, who can transcend politics. And everybody always says to me, give me an example. I say, all right, what about somebody like Admiral McCraven or somebody like The Rock? Okay, it sounds like a crazy example. But if The Rock ran for president last time, how well would he have done? He might have won. Or at least he would have started a conversation, right? But it goes all the way down to generals, coaches, people you know in your community. We need leaders, and we're looking for them. We think that independent veterans especially make this case very well. But then you also need structural change. And the number one thing I think you need is open primaries. The primaries are publicly funded and run privately by parties. So the Democratic Party or the Republican Party gets federal or local, federal, state, local money to run elections using federal machines in your public schools. So I went down to vote in the primary a couple months ago here in New York City in June, and they did it in my son's school. And my son said to me, hey, Dad, aren't you going to vote today? I said, I can't, son. And he said, why? You're a veteran. You should be able to vote. I said, because I'm an independent. And so my vote doesn't matter until the general. And by then the die is cast. And that's true in 400 out of 435 congressional races. So we need open primaries. We need better leaders. I think we need public financing. And we need a network that we're starting with called Independent Veterans of America. We're going to have 100 candidates next year. I think we might have more. We've got 4 for Senate in places like Idaho, South Dakota, Kentucky, and they're gonna be competitive. And maybe Dan Osborne in Nebraska is the best example. He was competitive against a right-wing Republican in Deb Fischer, who was a Trump apologist, and he, made it a 6-point race. I think I've told Senator Tester this: if John Tester ran again as an independent, he would be much more competitive than if he was a Democrat, because that's where I think more of the country is. And they want people that they trust that have integrity. So it's a long-winded answer, Maritza, to tell you, I think it is changing. And I think we're a breakout or two away. If Dan Osborne had beaten Deb Fischer, right, he would have been one independent in the Senate. He would have blocked Pete Hegseth. He would have been the difference vote on so many things. And when people understand the power of a true independent fulcrum, then we're really cooking with gas. I'm not talking about Kirsten Sinema and people. I'm talking about or Bernie Sanders, who says he's an independent, real independent, 1 or 2 in the Senate, and the whole game has changed.
Yeah,
I have a
amen. Go ahead,
Okay.
keep going. Keep going.
Sorry,
We're on a roll.
I just have to know, let's talk about what that looks like. For an independent candidate running for Senate in any state, what do they have to do? What is the winning strategy? Because in my mind, I think if you're running as an independent and let's say you lead in left of center on a lot of issues, don't you need to clear the field of Democrats running in the primary? Is that the strategy? Is that what that would look like?
Sometimes. Sometimes you don't, because the perfect scenario for an independent is, for example, what we might have here in New York State for governor, where you've got Kathy Hochul, who is a Democrat, very unpopular. You can argue she's moderate, but she's definitely left. She's hanging out with Mom Donnie last week, watching football games. And you're going to have Elise Stefanik, who is a MAGA right-wing bomb thrower. If you run a moderate independent in this state, that person is immediately viable. And let me give you a better example, if I can, Mauricio. The real action is in the mayor's races. The current mayor of Colorado Springs is an independent man named Yemi Mobilati. He won. He's an inspiring guy. He's got a great immigration story. He's in a military town. He's not a Democrat or Republican. And there's another example, Mayor Kelly in Chattanooga, Tennessee. This is a model that has worked, where people focus on getting things done. It's easier in a mayoral race, of course, right? And often when you have a more level playing field. But we look at, for example, Todd Achilles in Idaho, who's running against a very unpopular billionaire who owns the Chicago Cubs. I mean, if a Democrat stays in the race, it actually allows him to draw the contrast.
Mm.
And now I don't want the Democrats near him, because part of what hurt Dan Osborne is too many Democratic groups tried to help him, and they called him Democrat Dan. Like, Dan Osborne is well suited when he's in the middle and he is truly independent and can show and flex that integrity and take them all on. So I do think that this is a storm that's coming. The House races are tougher, but governors, Senate, mayors especially, there's going to be a lot of action in the years to come.
I need to, by the way, I applaud the efforts. Okay. I think it's good. I think anytime you can give people choices and you can get folks out there that are involved in the system, it's really, I think it's good. It's good for democracy. Can I run back to VA for just a second, to veterans?
Please.
Please. So you're not going to run as an independent ever? Is that what you're telling me, sir?
Here's the deal, Paul. When you file, let me know, and then you might be able to convince me. But the problem is, I've been married for 48 years, and my wife will flat divorce me.
I've
Can I
heard her
tell you
say
one
that.
thing that I do think is important, though, on this conversation?
Might be
There are
good.
a couple people that are close. And the other part of this is Democrats and Republicans have to break ranks. Somebody like Don Bacon in Nebraska, who's been somebody like Jared Golden in Maine right now. They are very close. They both sound like independents. And I think what it takes is a couple courageous people to actually leave their parties and show that it's viable and they can win. Then we're talking about something totally different.
Key is viability. I mean, the key is viability. I mean, oftentimes the best candidates, the best people don't win these races.
Right.
And if you show an independent can win, it doesn't even have to be all the time. I just once in a while. That's all you want, and that's good enough.
Yep.
But back to the more the issue at hand here.
Yep.
One of the biggest things we ever did was pass the PACT Act. So it's the bill that deals with toxic exposure. I've been hearing from some veterans that the administration is they think the benefits are too generous and they should be scaled back. Some of the presumptives have been rolled back. Now, I don't know if this is true or not. This is just what I'm hearing from veterans. It should be rolled back or at least scaled back. What are you hearing? Are they making the evidence standards so high that they in essence are eliminating the presumptive issues, or is it heading in the right direction? What would you do if how do you see the issue? How do you see the issue?
I think you got to start with, what is the goal of the folks that are in power right now? And they've always had a stated goal of attacking benefits that have been viewed as too generous, too wasteful, too fraudulent, right? That has always been what we've been fighting against, right? And then there was a Washington Post story that caught a lot of flack from all the VSOs that said, basically fraud is a problem at VA. And it's not. Like, we know factually a very small number of people go through all this bullshit to try to rip off the VA and get a fat check, right? It's a manipulation, or maybe the next generation of kind of like the welfare queens boogeyman, right? There are all these, lazy veterans who just want to live on the dole. It's just not factually based. But if you believe that government is bad, and I don't believe government's bad or good, I'm neutral and practical about it. But there has always been a right-wing, ideologically driven group of people that want to attack VA benefits because, number one, they know how much money is there. Like there's more money at the VA than just about anywhere in the federal government except the Pentagon, right?
Second biggest budget in the government, second biggest. So yeah.
Yeah, and I do think it was telling, like when Trump first got elected in the first term, you may remember this. We had our first meeting with the White House, and they rolled out Omarosa from The Apprentice as our like liaison, right? But then Kushner and other people started ripping in there, and here's what they did: they went, "Oh shit, that's how much money is there." Right? And you had the Mar-a-Lago 3, a group of business people that were trying to dissect the VA. Now you've got technology companies that are understanding that VA has this massive budget. So there is this duality where they want to attack the fundamentals of the system that presumes that people are sick. Right. And I think that's very important. The big part of the PACT Act that we got through was presumption, right? The understanding if you were in harm's way, you probably got sick, and we don't want you to fight the system. We want you to get care. And if it turns out you're not that sick, okay, maybe we saved your life, or maybe we wasted a little money, but we didn't make you fight the red tape for 20 years. I'm a 9/11 first responder. This is a really good example for people, right? I sucked in all kinds of toxins. We're finding out now how many things are making us sick and are killing our friends. That argument Vietnam vets have been making since the 60s. And so the PACT Act was so groundbreaking because it wasn't just about our generation. It was about depleted uranium. It was about Agent Orange. It was about everybody who had been fighting a system that was basically calling them a liar. And so they didn't want that to happen to begin with. So yes, they are attacking the PACT Act because they don't think it should have gone through. And I don't think it's most moderates. I do think it's the same folks that are running the government right now with Trump. And they view the VA as an unpopular thing they can beat down. And I think at the end of the day, the quality is the hard part for them because VA quality is very high. So now what has happened is with the layoffs, with the Doge attacks, with just the general chaos, quality is going to go down because you're hollowing out the system. You're kicking the crap out of it and making everybody feel terrible and telling everybody not to trust it. So it's become kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy. And I do think that over time, sir, we're going to see in this year or two, the hollowing out of people, quality people at the VA is maybe the worst part of it. It used to be honorable, celebrated. You work at the VA, it was a good thing. Now, my friends are being told that they're not, needed, that their service is no longer, and they just get treated disrespectfully. That's the thing I want to put a point on. I can't tell you how many of my friends send me emails that go, I just got sent this shit. And it says, like, you are no longer needed. Send me a report in 20. The disrespect, the lack of honor and integrity and just courtesy in the way they're dealing with people is unacceptable. And so I do come back to the PACT Act as maybe the line that we should watch because there are a lot of folks. And you know what could become next is GI Bill or survivor benefits or any other benefits. Any benefits are on the table right now. And we have to now hold the line on all those things we fought for 20 years.
I think the real twist of the knife, too, with the PACT Act, I mean, I covered that for a long time and the efforts and then finally the bill signing ceremony and the families I talked to, and that it's not just the veteran fighting. A lot of times it's the spouse after their veteran spouse had died, trying to fight for retroactive benefits. I mean, it's heartbreaking. It's just heartbreaking what those families go through.
Yeah, and this was, you remember this, Senator, it's important. This is why I like talking to you. There were folks who fought against transferability of the GI Bill when we got that passed. Nancy Pelosi, announced her retirement. I will tell anybody who will listen, I think Nancy Pelosi is the most effective leader, one of the most effective leaders I've ever seen. And veterans need to know, I don't care what your political background is, she got stuff done for us. She promised she would, and she did. And there's no better example than the GI Bill. But John McCain fought the transferability, and you know this. I couldn't make sense of it, but John McCain and others said, if the benefits were so good and you could transfer them, people would leave the military, right? That was the argument. Was the benefit? You can't make the benefits too good because then people are going to want to leave and use them, which was not grounded in fact. But the transferability now, almost 20 years later, is the true game changer. You got next generations of people that are seeing upward mobility or going to vocational schools or going to college because their mom or dad served in Iraq and Afghanistan. And in my view, the VA can be the best or the worst of what government can be. When it's the best, it's the GI Bill. When it's the worst, it's the backlog. And the truth is, it's usually somewhere in between. And that's why we need voices like you and others who understand the complexity of it to communicate that to the American people, especially around Veterans Day.
why this is important, not only for the veterans when you're talking about GI transferability or the PACT Act or making sure we're taking care of folks who have suicidal tendencies because of their service to this country, is we have an all-volunteer military. And if we're going to keep an all-volunteer military, we've got to have the next generation look and say, you know what? They treated my folks or my uncle or my granddad pretty darn good. I'm just going to sign up. And it's an incredible recruitment tool. When you treat people like shit, they ain't going to come back. And that is a fact. Um, you got any other questions, Maritza? We've taken this guy, we've ruined his whole afternoon.
We didn't talk football at all, you know. Like I told you, I want you to come on my show, and Maritza, I'd love to have you on too. We do football Fridays on my show,
Oh,
and I
great.
would
Can I
love
talk
to
about
get
the
you on.
Vikings?
We're going to
Oh, do you want to talk about the Vikings today?
No.
No.
tell you, talk about the Vikings is just brutal, you know.
I do
Football,
wanna ask, though, my question to wrap this up, unless you have a better if you wanna do something else, Senator.
and then you can ask it, but do you know what you call a Minnesota Viking with a Super Bowl ring?
What?
Thief. A thief, baby, a thief. Anyway, that's for Maritza because she's from Minnesota and she's a
Well, I
Viking.
think I told you why I couldn't answer your call right away. I don't know if I showed this yet. I did get a flag football Super Bowl ring yesterday. Big
That's the
shout out to
flag football
my
ring?
yeah, this is the thing. My 8U Bengals. We were the Bengals this year. They played really hard, but and my little guy, he's 6. He was playing too, but it was a great reminder of what community is all about, because we had great referees, great coaches, great parents, great kids, and especially around Veterans Day, it's a good reminder that so many vets are giving back in their community in a lot of different ways. All the American Legion baseball leagues and so many other ways. Even at the elections last week, I'm always reminded. My grandfather was a World War II veteran who worked the polls and just quietly did it like so many others. There were a lot of them that were there last week working the polls in your local elections, and you might not have seen them.
So my question for you, Paul, is, for those of us who maybe aren't military families or those of us who haven't served, how can the rest of us check in on the vets in our life? Or maybe vets we don't even know but recognize at the store with a hat. Like, what is the best way that we can step up and show support for them right now in this moment?
I think start by understanding that veterans' issues are everybody's issues. And our goal for decades has always been to make every day Veterans Day. So yeah, I want people to step up and thank us on Veterans Day and get involved. But even more importantly, I want you to prioritize veterans' issues in your life. Because here's the thing. If you think about what's happening in this country, and I am outspoken about what I think Trump is as a threat to our democracy. I say that as an independent, as a veteran, as a patriot, not as a Democrat or any partisan. Um, the folks who are going to have to hold the line are all of us. But if they treat generals like this, if they fire a chairman of the Joint Chiefs, they call them names, they disrespect them, they treat veterans like this. They fire tens of thousands of them. They don't care if their SNAP benefits are cut. They don't care if people at the Pentagon who are veterans are getting paid. How do you think they're going to treat you? How do you think they're going to treat your grandparents, your parents, your kids? Veterans are the ones that they put on the pedestal, and Trump held up at the football game yesterday, and they say they love them. But if you really look under the hood and you ask yourself, even the high profile stuff, like the way they're treating generals, if they treat them like that, how can they treat you? Because veterans, my good friend Dave Chastain once said, if America was a religion, veterans would be the clergy. They are the keepers of the flame. They help communicate the values and the history and the story, and they remind everyone. So, if you want to support veterans, I think you just got to understand that the veterans are out in front for you, not just on Iwo Jima and in Saigon and in Kabul, but they're on the front lines for America always. When a shutdown happens, they're the first ones getting hit. When a riot happens, they're the first ones going in. And when there's a school shooting, they're usually the first ones going in, and they can be an inspiration to all of us. But most importantly, just connect with them, right? Go to a local Veterans Day parade, go into the local VFW hall, but teach your children and engage in our community. And Veterans Day is the right day to do it because it's not Memorial Day. It's not July. Veterans Day is supposed to be about celebrating and understanding. And that starts with prioritizing veterans always. So your place of business, your school, a lot of schools don't do anything on Veterans Day. A lot of schools are closed on Veterans Day. So even in your family, if you watch a Ken Burns documentary or you read some stuff from the VFW or IVA or others, that's a good starting point. Start by teaching people and understanding what Veterans Day is supposed to be all about, because I always hope it's the one day that America can actually put their guns aside and come together and unite. And it still often is. And I hope that it will be that this year especially.
Well, Rieckhoff, you're a jewel. I'm just going to tell you, you're absolutely uh, you're a blessing. Your words are powerful and well thought out. And I just want to tell you, it was an absolute pleasure to have you on the podcast today. And next time I come to New York City, we got to find some street that's got a hoop on it with no net, and then I'm going to kick your ass.
Well, it's been an honor to work alongside you, and folks need to know that you're the same way off camera as on camera. And so many conversations and late nights and early mornings and phone calls, and you have worked so hard for this country that you are the best example, in my view, of what a public servant is about. And you've been a great role model to me. You've been a great mentor to me. You've been very generous. And I do not want to catch a pick from you crossing the lane on a basketball court. And we got a lot of basketball hoops here in New York City on a lot of corners, but I'd also like to come out there to Montana and let's find one and play some hoop out there. We can bring some veterans together. And Maurizia, maybe you can be the ref.
Yeah,
Yeah.
my neighbor has a little basketball sport court, so let's just go take over her yard and we'll do this.
Got something better than that. I got a little hoop on the side of my shop, and there's a little concrete. Now there's a few cracks here and there, and there might even be some weeds growing up through the cracks, but that's my court. I know where those weeds are, and I know where the cracks are.
Yeah, it's not gonna happen. Then you have the advantage.
Yeah, I'm right. I need every advantage I can get. I'm old. I'm rumpled.
You are rumpled.
Yes.
I showed my kids Hoosiers last night. And we talked about rural basketball in Indiana, and it was a good time. I tell you, if you haven't watched Hoosiers in a while, it's a good time to go back and watch Hoosiers and think about how, sports can be a connective tissue, but also the context of when that was happening, right? Early 50s, after World War II, Korea's happening. There's a lot of good in this country, and I just want to celebrate you all, especially as the good that has come out of Hoosiers is a good reminder that we're all in it together. And so is Veterans Day. And I appreciate your voice and you having me. I'll lead block for you anytime, sir. I got
That's
your back.
good. And we will come on your podcast, and Maritza can make the picks to begin with, and then I'll make fun of her. Okay. She'll make the
Everybody, please listen. IndependentAmericans.us. I've got General Mark Hertling on today. We're going to have Henry Rollins. We had Congressman Ro Khanna. We had Jim Vanderhey. We've had Mick Foley, the wrestler. We've had all kinds of folks on, but it's daily. We're speaking truth to power, and we'll keep you updated, especially on national security issues. So Independent Americans, we're on YouTube. We're on all the places. And hopefully we'll be doing a live show at Tester's Basketball Court in Montana soon.
Let's make it happen. All right. Thank you so much, Paul, for being here. Thank you for your service and all you do for veterans. And we'll see you soon.
Thank you all. Happy Veterans Day, everybody.
Happy Veterans Day. Sometimes we have guests on and we have a hard time getting them to answer any questions. Not with Paul.
No, yeah, it's pretty direct.
Paul, you ask him a question and you just sit back, man. You just boom. Chugga like a boom, chugga like a yeah.
I have to say thank you. There's some people in the comments saying that this is their favorite podcast, and we see you and we appreciate you. Thank you for being in this community with us. Okay, so as we unroll this new platform we're using on StreamYard, my TV friend Clayton helped us with some animations and graphics to kind of up our game, Senator, so we don't look like two wannabe podcast bros in Montana. So are you ready for this? You're ready?
I'm never ready for anything you do.
Ready?
So.
Oh, it's time to check on that hat that he's wearing, the Hatitude check.
Yeah, that's good. I see one of the pictures is with with me wearing my Hellgate sweatshirt, which
Oh, yeah.
isn't gonna make my grandson that goes to hell in the Capitol very happy. But what the hell, you
Well,
know?
my son had some words for you too, because he's probably going to rival Sentinel in
Uh,
Mizzou and not Hellgate. But,
mm,
okay, so let's check on that hat. I'm glad that I see the word veterans on it, so that's a good choice for today.
yeah. Well, so this is a pretty cool hat, to be honest with you. The Northern Cheyenne tribe gave it to me. It is, as you can see, heavily beaded, and it's got a lot of good stuff on it. And it's pretty nice. I'm going to tell you
Those are
that,
beads.
yeah, this is all bead.
Oh, cool.
This is all beadwork. This is
Wow.
somebody put some time into this derby. I'll tell you that. And I usually have it behind me in the display case, but since I got some hell for wearing a red Honda hat during this episode, you're going to see, I decided to put this hat on. So
Yeah, what do you call it? Our guest called it your red mega Honda hat.
yeah,
When you see a red hat with white words, does it mean that your mind automatically goes to that?
it matched. Does it go? Does this one? No, it
Well, you
doesn't.
can see veterans clearly, but when like, from far away, if you see a red hat with white lettering, you make an assumption.
Assumptions are made. We need to make it okay to wear red hats again. I kind of like them.
All right, I'm gonna let you work on that. Do you have any other thoughts? I do need to say that you still get calls from people, who are telling you that they're disappointed in your vote in
So
this week.
I just got another text today. Now I'm not sure this dude thinks I'm in the Senate, but he said, "Hey, could you make sure that, I mean, there's a thing Rand Paul's fighting for on hemp that, by the way, they should vote on, because I think Rand Paul has the right to get a vote on this hemp thing. This hemp, and I don't know much about the legislation, but it's about legalization, and it was done in the Farm Bill years ago when I was in the Senate. But the truth is that this bill evidently denies um, parts of uh, the hemp industry, the marijuana industry, from
Mm.
going. Look, in Montana, we passed it, and I think 8 other states they've passed some level of legalization. I don't get it. When the people speak, you ought to listen. I'm not a big dope. Sorry, I'm not a big pot guy, but to each their own. And if you want to make the argument of what's better for you, alcohol or pot, I'm not sure that argument will hold much
Wait,
water,
you're gonna have to give me a live education. Why can't you say dope?
because it's
Simple.
kind of derogatory. It's a derogatory term. Dope's derogatory. I don't want to be derogatory. I mean,
Or marijuana. Yeah, okay.
also,
I didn't
I've got to tell you, I've seen people with marijuana has helped a lot with their medical.
absolutely.
And so,
Absolutely.
what is it me to judge? I'm not going to do that. Hell with that. I mean, if it helps you, God bless you. Get after it, and how about it?
Okay. Well, we hope so much you enjoy this conversation. We want to again thank all of our veterans and their families for their service, for their sacrifice to this country. I think you'll really enjoy this conversation. Of course, you can find us on Substack, Blue Sky, Instagram, YouTube. You can shoot us an email anytime at groundedpcast@gmail.com. And we are going to, let me just say, on Friday, we are going to effort an in-person, like JT and I in the same room podcast with a guest. Let's see if we can get some special guests.
Yeah, it's going to be hard because it's hard for me to be around Maritza in the same room. I'm just telling you, it's
Get
tough.
in line.
It's
Get
tough.
in line.
Yeah.
So we'll
Well,
have some
I, I,
surprises.
I do want to echo Maritza and say thank you all for listening. Appreciate it and viewing or whatever you're doing. And, you know, listen to what Shelton Whitehouse said, because he's spot on.
All
You got to
right.
continue to fight where it does the most good.
Thank you to our veterans. Thank you to our guest, Paul Rieckhoff. Thank you to our friends at Pearl Jam for letting us use their music. And thank you to all of you who joined us both live and later on. We appreciate you, and we'll chat again soon.
Tally ho.